Hi, this is Ron Kulas with Stay Sharp again. Today we're going to be showing you how to use the Answer broadhead sharpening system and the popular Zeus broadhead. It's new on the market, but it's already gotten a pretty good following. Love to see this made in America. Fantastic. Like the other videos, the key to the sharpening system with the Answer is, of course, the insertion depth. If you've watched the other videos, I've done a little bit of sharpening on this one in preparation for this video. So the insertion depth for the main blade, the large blade, is 1/4 of an inch. It's perhaps the shortest insertion depth to date, and that's because they've got a great strong bevel on these heads. It's a rather steep bevel, but it's good and strong. There's another insertion depth that I'll be showing you later for the bleeder blades. So let's get into it. First step is going to be to mount your Zeus broadhead on the shaft provided. We offer on the back of the base a broadhead wrench for you to tighten it. Take advantage of that. You don't want the head slipping loose once you've made your setting. So put your broadhead in, tighten it, move to the back of the broadhead wrench, tighten it up good, loosen up this thumb screw, insert the shaft, and as I said, for the main blades, the insertion depth is 1/4 inch. The next step is to color up the blades with a dark colored marker, and you want to do this to be able to establish that you're getting 100% cleanup on the metal, that you've matched the bevel angle from the factory. So I'm going to go ahead and color up all the sides of the blade. And we're going to start with the 1200 grit plate, and the 1200 grit plate is only going to be used at this point to erode or wear away the marker that we've put on there, just to make sure that we're matching the factory grind and that we've got a great bevel. So the first thing you're going to do is take your handle, loosen this thumb screw, slide the 1200 grit plate in, finger tighten only. There's no need for wrenches or pliers for the thumb screw that's on the base or the thumb screw that's on the handle. These parts are composite. If you start using pliers or wrenches, you're going to break things. Thumb tighten is all you need. So now that we've got the 1200 grit plate mounted in here and the broadhead mounted, let's talk about alignment. You're going to notice on the base a series of holes around the perimeter. There's a key at the very top. This happens to be, for all intents and purposes, a 2-blade broadhead, and then we'll talk about the other 2 blades. But for these 2 blades, you're always going to start with the square hole above the key. The key is here. Here is the square hole. That will do the top side of this first blade. Later we'll switch to the square hole below the key. That will do the other side of this blade. We've got another square hole above this blade to do that side, and a square hole below that blade to do the other side of this blade. I'm going to insert the rod into the square hole in the base above the key. There are a couple of different methods that you can use to sharpen. You can plant the hand that's holding the diamond grit and move the broadhead back and forth, or you can plant the hand that's holding the broadhead and move the diamond back and forth. It's really up to you. It's personal preference. My preference with this head is to hold the base and put a finger behind the blade and simply slide the broadhead back and forth. But you also have the opportunity, as I said, to move the stone back and forth. So now that I've done that a little bit, I can look at the wear on the marker and I can see all the marker is gone. So I've matched that pretty well. I've got my insertion depth just right. Depending on how dull your head is, you may want to start with 400 grit, then go to 800 grit, and finish with 12. If it just needs a touch-up, it's been inserted into a quiver a few times, it's dull, it needs a touch-up, maybe 1200 is all you need. Maybe buffing is all you need. Now I'm going to go to the square hole below the key and do the opposite side of that same blade. And the number of strokes in the grit is all going to be based on how dull your head is. Alright, so now that I've got this blade done, I go to the other side opposite the key. Again, square hole. Sharpen that blade. There's a square hole on the other side of that blade. The same thing. Sharpen that blade. And the reason I put a finger behind there is because there is just a little bit of play, not much, that just keeps the blade from moving. That allows you to sharpen both sides of both blades. When you've got the heads sharpened up with the finest grit, which is 1200, move the 1200 grit plate and load the buffing surface. Again, only finger tighten. We supply the green buffing compound, so go ahead and load up the plate with a bunch of buffing compound. And we're going to start with the square hole above the key, again, like we did when we sharpened. And again, if you're left-handed or right-handed, it won't matter. You'll find out what's comfortable for you and how you want to sharpen. When you get to the buffing surface, don't use a pushing stroke because you'll cut into the wood, you'll scrape off the buffing compound. So for the buffing, you're just going to use a pulling stroke, lift, pull, and this will take your heads from sharp to scary sharp. The 1200 grit left a real fine burr. The buffing will remove that burr and polish up the edge. So now that I've done this side of the blade with the square hole above the key, I'll go to the square hole below the key, and it's the same thing. Pull, lift, and follow that for the other side, both sides of the second blade. We've got that sharp, and you can do all of these setups from every grit to buffing at this setup for both of the main blades. When you've got those completely done, loosen the thumb screw and push it out to 1.25 inches, and now we're going to line up the secondary blades, the bleeder blades, with the key. Eyeball it. Again, lock it down, finger tight. The insertion depth for the bleeder blades is 1.75 inches. Mark up all four sides of the blades with the marker. One note that I should make is when you look at the bleeder blades, if they don't happen to be in there so that the bottoms or the bases of the blades are parallel with the insert, loosen it up, adjust it so that the blades are running consistent on both sides, parallel to the bottom of the insert. When you have that, lock it back down. So we've got the blades colored up. We're going to take out this buffing surface. Again, go back to 1200 grit. We want to establish that we got the insertion depth right by removing that marker. And because, again, we've now adjusted it so the bleeder blades line up with the key, again, use the square hole above the key, lay the blade on there, and either move the head back and forth or move the diamond grit back and forth. So this is kind of a unique setup in that we have to adjust it twice with two depths because of the two blades. After you've done the 1200 grit, again, go back to the buffing surface with a pulling stroke only. Don't cut into it. So that is using the Stay Sharp answer sharpening system with the Zeus head. We've done several videos so far. We'll be doing a few more. So subscribe and you will get to see the answer being used on a variety of broadheads. Thank you very much.